Women in Glasgow are grappling with a deepening safety crisis and what's been called a shocking rise in gender-based violence. According to figures from the Safe Glasgow Partnership, instances of domestic abuse and rape have increased by more than 40%, and sexual assault in the city has risen by 28% in just 1 year. Meanwhile, charity bosses have told STV News they're stretched to breaking point. Caitlin Hutchison has more.
Paige's history of gender-based violence took an extreme toll on her mental health.
I stopped being able to go to work, and eventually I stopped being able to leave the house. I couldn't even take my rubbish out. You're constantly hearing about the things that happen. I don't think I've ever met a woman who hasn't been attacked in some way, whether it's like verbal or physical or sexual.
But she says this women-only self-defense class has given her her life back as she learns to verbally assert and physically protect herself.
Step back! I'm not scared anymore. Like, can't believe that. It's like as a woman to not feel scared alone at night walking home. I feel cautious, but I'm no longer walking like huddled with my keys in my hand, like the classic one, or like, like gripping my bag and thinking like, am my laces tied tight enough? Am I going to be able to run if something happens? No, I don't feel like that at all now.
So headbutt, hammer, elbow maybe to the neck.
However, while the skills they're learning give the women here confidence, they know their safety outside of this room isn't guaranteed. And that's exactly why they come.
The area that I stay in is quite safe, but the town itself, it can be quite dodgy. I did have some situations where I was threatened, especially with people under influence.
The police presence could be like a little bit more maybe on the streets, especially at night. When there's football matches or there's marches in town, then you see plenty of police presence. The rest of the time, it can be really hard to come by.
It's quite scary of like what they're seeing on the news constantly. Andrew takes stuff. I think it's been normalised to demonise women a little.
Well, like, right off the jump, by the way, right, irrespective of the sex in question, abuse or rape, as they referred to in that news piece, or anything of that nature, is obviously egregious. It's wrong. But it's not just a one-sided issue. You know, there's plenty of women out there who abuse their lesbian partners. There's plenty of women who abuse mentally or physically their male partner. Same way that there's plenty of fucking guys who abuse their male partners if they're gay or whatever. However, just like with everything else, unfortunately, anything that political activists can do to sort of hijack, jump aboard metaphorical gravy trains, they will do so. And this is no different. Gender-based violence. You know, and even in the little news piece that I played there at the start, they're going on and on and on and on and on. No mention at all whatsoever, as I said, to like lesbians or like gays or women on men. No, it's gender-based violence. What is gender-based violence? So all you need to do is a very, very easy thing for you to do yourself. Just Google gender-based violence. You won't see a fucking thing about anything I just mentioned there. It's simply, you'll see it yourself. Right, so what is gender-based violence? This is according to the Scottish Women's Rights Centre. And it says here that the Scottish Women's Rights Centre provides legal and advocacy services for women survivors of gender-based violence. We aim to be inclusive and welcoming to all women. However, right, then it goes on to say that gender-based violence, okay, this is been defined. And if you think that this is just one activist group, you're wrong. I'll get to it. The crux of this video in just a second. Gender-based violence is a function of gender inequality and an abuse of male power and privilege. Okay. In order for a claim like that to be substantiated, that would require there to be absolutely no women on women domestic abuse cases, mental or physical. Absolutely no women on man, physical or mental. No. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You know, like with everything, whether it's narcissism, whether it's just a cunt, whether it's a potential rapist or a stalker or anything negative. It doesn't matter. Like, it should not be gender based. It's just these people are not particularly wired up right, you know. But they excludes all the other forms of abuse in order to sort of push forward with their feministic fucking view of the world. In order for gender-based violence to be a function of gender inequality and an abuse of male power, that can, well, as I said, can only be substantiated if there was absolutely zero cases of women on women, or women on man, or men on men. So when a woman abuses, whether physical or mentally, their male partner, that they do so because of an abuse of male power. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fucking make sense. That's the point. However, it takes the form of actions that result in physical, sexual, and psychological harm or suffering to women and children, or affront to their human dignity, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or private life. And I showcased a few months ago on my fucking channel. I tried to phone Men's Aid. Men's Aid gets no government funding, but Women's Aid does. Why is that? Gender-based violence is a term that is used to describe crimes such as rape, domestic abuse, stalking, and forced marriage that are overwhelmingly, but not exclusively, carried out by men. So, not exclusively. So, when they say not exclusively, what are they meaning by that? They're indirectly suggesting that it's not always men. But in order for their claim about gender-based violence and misogyny, etc., to make any sense whatsoever, the implication would be that it has to be men 100% of the time. So what about the times when it's not men? What about the times when it's women on women? What about the times when it's women on man? The narrative it doesn't make sense. But it doesn't stop these people from fucking pushing this toxic crap. Quite frankly, here we are though, eh? Here's another example. Share this tab. Gender-based violence from Public Health Scotland. And what do you see? Gender-based violence, right? Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Details of local gender-based violence contacts and how we are adopting a public health approach to address violence against women and girls. What about men? What about men? What about women or women? Yeah. Commercial sexual exploitation includes a wide range of often linked sexual activities which typically men profit from or buy, from which women and which objectify and harm women. Oh, women, fucking women. Like, again, like the point I'm trying to get at here is like abuse, physical or mental, irrespective of the gender/sex. It just shouldn't happen, full stop. That shouldn't happen. Some relationships are toxic. Some people are just cunts. Right? And that's not sex specific. But according to these people, it is. Which leads me on to the Scottish Government, of course. Yeah, there's no smoke without Friday. Preventing and responding to gender-based violence, a whole school framework. Right? And then it goes on to say, and of course it says, Jenny got this. Right? Mr. Fucker. I'm not going through all this, but I just want to share this, right? So it says here, the Scottish Rainbow Unicorn government's aim is to end all forms of gender-based violence across our society. So when you hear the term all forms of gender-based violence, you might be forgiven for assuming or presuming even that when you hear that sentence that they're talking about just abuse in its entirety. No, that's not what they're talking about, because it doesn't take fucking long. for them to go on to say, when the Gender Equality Task Force in Education and Learning was established in 2020, following a recommendation of the Nicola Finlips' National Advisory Council on Women and Girls, one of its early pieces of work was to commission reports from the Children and Scottish Youth Parliaments. These reports both confirmed the gender-based violence which girls and young women continue to experience in Scotland's classrooms. We know that the prevalence of some dangerously misogynistic social media personalities is having a toxic influence on some boys, with a growth in disrespect towards female teachers and classmates alike. Okay. So obviously this PDF is one of many which sort of is talking about things that are being done in educational settings, academical settings in Scotland. Feministic bullshit, of course. But the reality of the matter is, again, in order for any of these claims to be remotely substantiated, it would require there to be absolutely zero women on women cases or women on male, female on male cases. But the reality of the matter is there's plenty of these cases as well. Henceforth, the narratives that they're perpetuating don't make sense. But they don't need to make sense because you're not challenged. Scotland, eh? Land of the fucking free my asshole. Honestly, man.